If you've ever told yourself, I'm just not a disciplined person, or you watch somebody else who wakes up consistently at 5 a.m., gets their workouts done, sticks to their plans, and think, how do they do that? This episode is going to change the way you think about discipline. Because the truth is, most people aren't lacking discipline. What they're lacking is an understanding of what their brain is doing. Your brain is actually wired to make discipline feel difficult. And today I'm going to explain exactly why. And if you stay with me until the very end, I'm going to show you one simple thing that you can start doing immediately to help you become the disciplined person that you desperately wish you could be. So one of the most helpful things that I've learned about the brain is what psychologists refer to as the motivational triad. And the motivational triad is referring to the lower part of your brain, that survival part of your brain that has three main functions: seek pleasure, avoid pain, and to be as efficient as possible. Three things. The reason why this is really important when it comes to discipline is because your brain is wired for these things every single day. And this system made perfect sense thousands of years ago. Our ancestors needed the dopamine required to motivate them to go find the food. If they didn't hunt or gather the food, they could literally starve. So that makes sense. But today, in our world today, we live in a completely different environment. Food is everywhere. Entertainment is everywhere. Dopamine is everywhere. Your brain can literally get dopamine instantly. We got Uber Eats, social media, snacks, scrolling, Nintendo. And here's something to remember. Every time that your brain finds an easy source of that pleasure, of that dopamine, because remember, dopamine makes us feel good. It assures us that we are doing something right. Whenever we seek pleasure and we receive the pleasure, our brain remembers it. It's like a tattoo on our hippocampus. So here's where discipline breaks down, because most people misunderstand that your brain isn't just trying to avoid physical pain or physical threats. It's also trying to avoid emotional pain. And what is emotional pain? We as humans classify emotional pain as negative emotions. Emotions like boredom, fear, dread, restlessness, anxiety, uncertainty, just to name a few. And there are hundreds. And what your brain does is it interprets those emotions as problems to solve. So whenever you feel those emotions, and remember, you're feeling emotion every single day, your brain will toss up urges. Okay, and what an urge is an emotion. It feels urgent. It tosses up a desire to go do something that is pleasure seeking. Okay, skip the workout, check your phone, eat the snack, delay the workout, have a nap. And remember, it's not because you are this lazy person. It's because your brain is trying to remove the discomfort, and it knows exactly what to say to you in the form of a thought to get you to go do that other thing that will avoid you feeling that discomfort of negative emotion. I actually saw this really clearly in my own life when it came to food. There was a time I genuinely believed that I had no control around sweets. I thought I was just one of those people that was always going to struggle with sugar and sweet cravings. But what I learned through my mentor was that it had very little to do with food. Most of the time when I desired something sweet, I was not hungry. All that was happening in my brain was that I was experiencing a negative emotion, and my brain was telling me to go have a treat. And what's interesting is that when your brain tells you to go have the sweet or go get your phone, it isn't some long drawn out conversation. It's a simple thought like, I just need a snack. I should go get something to eat. I call those urge thoughts. It's something that I teach in my 10-10-10 accelerator to become a normal eater. You have to be aware of those urge thoughts that your brain will come up with, because what happens is when you recognize them for what they are, which is just a thought to get you away from negative emotion for doing the task, following your food plan, doing the workout, whatever it is, you can remove yourself from that thought. For most times with me, it was usually because I was bored, I was restless, I was in some sort of emotion like sadness or frustration. And my brain would suggest, pleasure instead in the form of that urge thought. And it wasn't until I learned those 2 steps that I teach in the Normal Eating Accelerator, which is just planning your food ahead of time and following Hunger Satisfied, that I was aware how much negative emotion that my brain was avoiding. Because remember, if you have a food plan, and even if I have a cookie on that food plan, if my brain tosses up an urge for anything else, I know that it's because my brain is seeking immediate gratification, likely because it's trying to avoid emotional pain. It's trying to avoid feeling or experiencing a negative emotion in my body, which, as we know, if you haven't yet watched this episode, negative emotion is not harmless. It is always going to be a part of your human experience. It's really important that you pay attention to what emotions that you're feeling and then pay attention to the urge thoughts that have you seeking immediate gratification right away. The minute that you get up out of your chair to go answer an urge, for example, your brain says, I want a snack. The minute I get up to go to the cupboard to go get myself a treat, I'm actually getting the reward of dopamine in my brain. My brain is already releasing dopamine before me eating that food. And it's interesting too, because your brain will never toss up cravings for carrots or broccoli or kale or a salad, right? Your brain's never like, we should go eat a salad. Right? It always wants something that will release a copious amount of dopamine, whether that's a latte or a vending machine snack or some sort of candy or a cookie, right? Something that has a surge of sugar that will release a lot of dopamine in your brain. So for me, learning how to override that urge for food was a skill that changed everything for me. It is what helped me become, obviously, not only disciplined to my meal plans, the food that I choose to write on my plan every day, but also with what I plan to do with my day to help me achieve the goal that I want. If I have a planned workout, I'm going to stick to that planned workout. If I have a task to get done that's going to be helpful for me reaching the goal that I want in my business, I'm going to follow through on that task, and I'm going to pay attention to the urge thoughts that tell me to pull out my phone instead. So one simple tool that I'll offer you right now that you can start doing right away is that whenever the thought appears in your brain that sounds like, we should just have a snack, or I think I'm going to skip my workout, simply say to yourself, this is an urge thought. That one sentence will create distance for you because the urge is not you. It is your primitive brain trying to escape discomfort. And the moment that you label it, you separate yourself from it, which will give you space to choose something different. It will give you space to think something new. And if you haven't listened to my episode called Your Second Thought Changes Everything, I would definitely recommend you go back and listen to that one, because the first thought is the urge, but your second thought is where your power is. Okay, so the motivational triad, we've talked about your brain likes to seek pleasure all the time. It's always looking for you to feel good, and it's also programmed for you to avoid emotional pain. Okay, the third part of the motivational triad is to conserve energy. And to sum this up, your brain loves shortcuts. And the paradox here is that anything in your life that you want that is worthwhile going after, it requires energy. It requires effort. It requires delayed gratification. But your primitive brain prefers what is easy, what is instant, what is almost effortless. So if you think about our world today, scrolling is easy and effortless. It requires almost no energy at all. And every time that you pull out your phone and you start scrolling, you're getting dopamine. There's a reason why you do it. It's because it feels good. Your brain loves to be entertained. It loves the novelty of something new. That's why when you're on Instagram Reels and you're just flipping and scrolling, it's like you can get stuck there for hours. I mean, heck, I do it too. Like, I'm guilty of that. And why? It's like my brain, I can almost hear my brain saying to me, just one more, right? Like, it's addicted to the dopamine, to the pleasure that we get from that entertainment, that what am I going to learn that's new, that's going to blow my mind? And what else? Watching Netflix also requires no energy. Ordering food requires almost no energy. Even small things like pressing the button on your dishwasher versus washing your dishes gives you that dopamine. Your brain rewards you for that shortcut. So when we think about the way that our brain is desired to conserve energy, it does make sense that your brain would rather skip the workout and do something else that makes you feel better in the moment, immediate gratification instead. So when you say, I need more discipline, what you're missing out on is what your brain is designed to do, which is to seek pleasure, avoid emotions, negative emotions, and be efficient, conserve as much energy as possible. And so when we look at all of the actions that you're currently taking that are standing in the way of how you want to show up in your life, what we are looking at is a collection of habits that you have. You have a habit of hitting the snooze button every time that you've tried to wake up early to fit your workout into your daily routine. You have a habit of not waking up early and making a food plan for yourself. You have a habit of scrolling your phone, avoiding that difficult conversation with your spouse, or looking for ways to build more connection. It's so much easier to flip on Netflix, call it a night. And then you wonder why you don't have connection with your spouse. But what's really going on is your brain is just telling you that that's much easier. We don't have to spend a ton of effort. And it is also super rewarding. We both like to watch the show, but what's lacking is connection. So what are you going to do? Psychologist Angela Duckworth, who studied high performers and Olympic athletes, found that what separated successful people was not that they always felt motivated. It was something that she called grit. And she defined that as their ability to stay committed to their long-term goals, even when things felt difficult, even when things were uncomfortable. Key word there is felt, difficult and uncomfortable. Those are emotions. What determines whether or not you're going to be a success is going to be whether or not you can sit through negative emotions. She goes on to say that over time, those repeated disciplined actions turned into habits. And habits, my friend, habits require so much less mental effort. Why? Because they're automatic. And the beautiful thing, and I'm going to get into this in a moment, is that when you've created habits, you create identity. Right now, if you're watching this video, it's because you don't yet have the identity of being a disciplined person. If you want to be that disciplined person, you overcome the negative emotions by feeling them, by not buffering from them, by not giving in to the urges to do the easy, immediate gratification action. Whatever that is, eating, scrolling, drinking, drugs, whatever your vice is. And when you overcome those urges, you will follow through on your actions. And when you follow through on those actions, you create the habit. And when you have the habit, your brain catches on to the identity of this is who you are now. If you look at scripture, there are tons of examples of discipline. One powerful example is Daniel. And in the book of Daniel, he refuses the king's food and chooses to follow the diet that aligns with his beliefs, even though everybody else around him was doing the opposite. Now, we're not explicitly told whether or not Daniel had urges or not, but we can assume that he did. The king's food would have been the most desirable food available. And the easiest option would have been to eat it just like everybody else, especially because you could risk the chance of offending the king by not eating his food. But Daniel chose something different. He stayed aligned with what he believed was right versus choosing the easier option. And that is really what discipline is. Discipline in scripture is often referred to doing the thing that you know that you should do, even when the easier option is available. So I want you to think about your own life and ask yourself, where am I lacking discipline in the thing that I know that I should do and I'm not doing it? And now here's something really important to understand, that disciplined people are not people who never have urges. At some point in their life, they felt that same pull that you feel right now to delay or procrastinate or to avoid the things or avoid the emotions that you are currently experiencing. The difference is that they learned how to override that urge. And over time, when you override that urge enough times, not only will it get weaker, the new behavior, the actions that you want will become the new habit. So the disciplined person who works out every morning, they might hear the thought in the morning, I should just skip the workout, but they override it with, that's never going to happen. And then they go do the workout. And when that habit forms, the interesting that happens is it becomes your identity. You start to see yourself as somebody who is disciplined in that area. My personal example of this is I have played squash almost consistently 3 mornings a week for the past 13 years. That's not even a lie. Even when I was pregnant with my 3 daughters, I played up until around 7 months. And then I would, take some time off after the birth of my children, but I would get right back into it. And it would always be 3 times a week. So I definitely had urges in the beginning to skip workouts, to make up an excuse not to go. But I have built the identity that I am somebody who follows through on their squash workouts. I follow through on my morning workouts. It's just who I am. I'm a consistent squash player. And every so often, I still get the urge to sleep in, to text my partner and tell them I'm going to be sick today. But I never follow through, because I love the result that it's created for me. I'm a consistent person. This is who I am. It's part of my identity. And here's something important for you to remember is that you are already a disciplined person in certain areas of your life. For example, you brush your teeth every day. You probably make your coffee before bed so that it's ready for you in the morning. You check your phone at certain times of the day automatically. Those are all habits, which means discipline already exists in your life. So instead of telling yourself, I'm just not a disciplined person, or I'm not very disciplined, I would encourage you to change that sentence. Start saying something different and true about yourself. I am disciplined in some areas of my life. I'm learning how to be disciplined in other areas of my life, because that's the truth. You aren't just born disciplined in certain areas and not in others. Discipline is a skill. You can train yourself to be disciplined in the areas that you want to build discipline. It's something that gets built through repetition and habit. So if you're still thinking, well, if discipline is something that gets built through repetition and habits, then why am I so disciplined in some areas and not in other areas of my life? For example, you might be extremely disciplined in your work. You show up, you meet deadlines, you get your projects done. What's happened there is you've built the identity around being somebody who follows through professionally. But maybe when it comes to your workouts or your eating habits, that same level of discipline isn't there yet. And the reason, hopefully you're seeing by now, is very simple. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're capable of being disciplined. You are 100% capable of being disciplined in those areas. Reason is because you're not yet willing to feel the negative emotions required in those areas to build the habit in that area, or you just don't know how to feel negative emotion. You don't actually have that tool yet. So that's it. Every new habit requires you to feel emotions that you don't want to feel. Your brain doesn't want you to feel. Dread, boredom, frustration, uncertainty, restlessness, inconvenience, effort. And what most people do is tell themselves really convincing stories. I just don't have time. There's too much going on right now. I'll start next week. But all those are just excuses that your brain comes up with so that you will avoid the discomfort of feeling those other emotions that are required on the journey to you reaching any goal or any dream result that you want in your life. Because if you can be disciplined in one area of your life, you can definitely be disciplined in the other. The difference is simply your willingness to feel any emotion that comes up when you make the plan to do that thing that requires some discipline. And the reason why this topic matters so much to you right now, the reason why you feel frustrated with your discipline, is because the area that you want to grow in is connected to who you want to become. It's connected to your future identity. In many ways, it's connected to your destiny. The desire that you have to become more disciplined, the desire to take better care of your body, to follow through more consistently, to live at a higher level, that desire is not random. It's evidence of the person you are capable of becoming. It's your future self calling you to a higher standard. And one of the easiest ways that we let ourselves off the hook is by telling ourselves that some people have more discipline than others. The fact that you're even listening to this episode tells me something, that you already know you're capable of more discipline. And that awareness alone means you're already moving towards the direction of becoming that person. So the next question becomes, if your brain is wired to seek pleasure, avoid discomfort of negative emotions, and to conserve as much energy as possible, and all of this is a massive obstacle in order for you to become that disciplined person, how do you actually train yourself to override those urges? How do you generate the emotions that create discipline? Emotions like determination, certainty, commitment, committed, disciplined. And also, this is where understanding it isn't enough. So, I've actually created something for you. It's called the Identity Gap, and it's a short guide plus a mini training called the Disciplined Mind. Inside of this, I show you the exact patterns that are holding you back, but more importantly, I take you through a really powerful exercise, step by step, like I would with a client, so that you can start showing up differently, intentionally. Because what this all boils down to is the patterns of how you think. And if you don't change the patterns of how you think, it doesn't matter what you do or the actions that you take, you'll always just revert back to your old way of doing things. So the guide is going to show you the gap, and then the mini training is going to show you how to discipline your mind. And that is the training where it actually starts to change for you. Because you can watch all of these episodes and feel good about learning, but until you start applying the work, the change doesn't actually happen. The transformation doesn't take place. So this mini training and this guide is helping you to step into action versus passive action, which is just consuming more information. So make sure you go grab it in the description. It's in the show notes. It's something that you can start applying and get through in one session. It's not very long. All right. And until the next episode, remember, your life doesn't change when urges disappear, because they never will. Your first line of action is to allow the urge to be there and not to answer it. Your life will simply change by not obeying the urge. That is your first step of discipline. All right, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure you're hitting subscribe. Leave me a comment. Nobody leaves me comments right now. I would love to hear from you. And if you haven't yet, checked out these videos right here. And don't forget to hit the show notes to get your free training and the Identity Gap Guide. I'll see you in the next episode.